Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Camila and today I'm finally coming with my review of 2022. We are in February, I know it's late, but I had written a whole review and I had calculated all my stats, and then obviously I lost it all when my laptop died, so I had to go back and redo everything and I've been busy. Anyway, no excuses needed, you know, this is a hobby, but this explains why it's a little bit late. But better late than never. So we're going to dive right in and I'm going to try to keep it concise. We'll try. So first, let's see how many books did I read in 2022. The total was 127 books, which I'm actually really pleased with. And I think compared to 2021, I actually read less books, but I read more pages. And that is completely explained by the fact that I read some chunkers in 2022. And that includes some of my classics like Middlemarch by George Eliot, Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell, and The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. The shortest book that I read in 2022 was Christmas Storms and Sunshine by Elizabeth Gaskell. This was a short story, so it was only 12 or 14 pages. And the longest book was obviously Count of Monte Cristo with 1650 pages. I can see that my reading really fluctuated throughout the year, but there was an average of maybe about 10 books a month, which makes sense with the number of books that I read. So I'm quite pleased with that. You can see that I peaked a little bit in March and April. So that's when I was participating in kind of the Disability Readathon, and also the Women's Prize for Fiction longlist had come out and I kind of dived into that. And also in November there's a peak as well because I've read loads for nonfiction in November. My top genres won't be a surprise, but they were literary, contemporary, historical, classics, and romance. Yeah, no surprise there, good balance. It's also kind of very similar to my top moods, which were reflective, emotional, challenging, lighthearted, mysterious, and informative, which again is a good mix. There's lighthearted come up from 2021, and I think it's because I started the year quite dark and then I really sought lighthearted stuff like romance, stuff like that, so I think that's why those two things just kind of came up in 2022. My most read author was obviously Virginia Woolf because I read 5 of her novels, really quickly followed by Elizabeth Gaskell of Gaskelltober fame. This is the only month that I read something by Elizabeth Gaskell, and yet she's my second most read author of the year. Apparently, I read from 94 new to me authors, which is really cool stat to find out. I didn't know TheStorygraph did that until I was kind of going through my my wrap-up. Another stat that was kind of cool to see was that apparently 17 books that I read were part of a series, which I did not expect. That really surprised me because I was thinking about it recently, about series, and I was like, I don't think I read from series this much, and I was like, what do I want to do, and you know, what I should pursue in the future in terms of series. And I saw this and I was like, really? And I didn't realize, but to be fair, there's a couple of books this year that I read that I didn't know were part of series because they were very much like standalone books, but I guess they're part of like a theme or a series from an author that I didn't realize. So I have to go back and look at that. Next is that more than 50% of the books I read were over 300 pages in 2022, which is up because obviously last year, more than half the books that I read were less than 300 pages. And that makes sense when you look at the fact that I read less book but more pages this year. So obviously most of my books were large, and I read quite a few over 500 pages as well. And there was an almost 25 to 75% balance between nonfiction and fiction. It's down from actually 25-75 last year, but I'm quite pleased. This is where I wanted to sit, so it's all right. And that really was like a last-ditch effort because nonfiction November, I really went full out with nonfiction. So I think that helped my average go up. And now a couple stats that I made for myself, just of stuff that I want to be aware of and just look at how I'm doing. The first is the kind of male and other split in terms of authors. So I did other because I read a couple of non-binary authors. So it's kind of like female non-binary is what I want to prioritize. So I read 19 male authors out of 127, and therefore that means that it's about 85% female non-binary authors. This is up from 83% in 2021, but you know, I'm good with kind of around those numbers. A number I'm less pleased with is my kind of white author versus authors of color and indigenous authors. It was at 31% this year, which is down from 40% in 2021. So I really did not do that well this year. I think one of the things I can blame myself is the fact that I read a lot of white authors, like for my classics TBR and stuff like that, which is why, like, if you look at my classics TBR for 2023, I tried to balance it out with a couple of authors of color as well. Then we have the split of formats. I wanted to look at how did I read in terms of audio, print, ebooks. So audio was 44%, print was 35%, and ebooks was at 21%. So ebooks was down because I actually really struggled to read on my tablet in 2022. I just wasn't feeling it. So obviously audio and print were up, which I'm kind of happy with, so all good with that. Finally, we're going to look at just one more, information before we move on, and it is in terms of countries that I read from, kind of diversity, which is something that I'm looking for. But in 2022, I only read from 25 different countries, which is down from 36 in 2021. So I'm very displeased with myself for that. It's still quite a large number, but still I feel like, because I've been more diverse before, I feel like I can do it again. My top countries were England, USA, Canada, Scotland, Chile, Jamaica, and Malaysia, with multiple repeats, obviously, especially in the US and the UK authors. And finally, for the second part of this video, let's do a quick look at my goals of 2022 and how I did. The first goal was to read 75 books, which I definitely accomplished because I read 127 books. So that's more than 50 books over my goal, which I'm very pleased with. I read a lot. So it was a good year. My first full year on Booktube, so I think I was highly influenced by that. My second goal was to read 25% of my physical TBR. My notes literally read for that. Lulz. Let's not pretend that I even did that. So that kind of gives you the vibe for that challenge. That said, I did have a number at the beginning of 2022. So I said 25%, but then I was like, okay, that's about 40 books. I did end up reading 35 books that I own that are print. So I'm actually quite pleased with that. The main issue is obviously I acquired a lot of books in 2022. A lot of books. So I didn't really keep my physical TBR up to date. So I need to actually do that at some point and go through. I've also unhauled some books that I've read and that I've not read. So I need to look at that at some point. Goal number 3 was to read from 12 new to me countries. So obviously I recently put out a video for 12 new to me countries for 2023. I had a similar goal for 2022, but I didn't pick specific countries. I didn't kind of go through with it. I looked into it the first few months, so I picked like specifically each month a book with a country, and then after that I kind of stopped. So it turns out of the 25 countries, only 6 were new to me in 2022, which is really only 50% of this goal done. So a little bit disappointed, but I'm taking steps to hopefully be better this year. In number 4, we had read 12 books in French. And I started a bit rough on that, but then I went to Canada and read loads of books in French and reached 12. And then I remember when I was making the original list in December, like for my stats and review and stuff, I was like, okay, I guess I read 12, good. And then I realized I'm in the middle of reading Count of Monte Cristo, which is in French. So yeah, so I read 13, but obviously Count of Monte Cristo probably had more pages than all the 12 other ones combined. Probably way more actually, because most of them were small poetry, short story collections, stuff like that. So yeah, definitely done. Check. In number 5, we had my 22 classics to read in 2022, which was a really big challenge. You can go and see my classics TBR review for 2022 to see which books and how many I read from my list. In total, I read 15, but they weren't all from my original list. In number 6, we had to follow book prizes. And as my first full year on Booktube, I kind of wanted to do more stuff that kind of other people were doing, wanted to be part of it. Because I joined like halfway through the year in 2021, I was kind of getting to grasp a lot of things that people were doing and like themes and readathons and prizes. So I kind of dived. I went for it in 2022. I think I went for it really hard because I feel like every week there was a new prize that I was like following, or like a short list or a long list or reaction or whatever. So I did loads. It was really fun to follow, even though often I did not read the books, but it was great to put some of the titles on my radar. Just generally, especially for like Canada prizes, that was really cool because I don't live there, so I'm not as aware of books that are coming out. And actually most of the books that I'm really keen to read, I haven't been able to find here. So next time I'm in Canada, we'll look into it. My favorite prize was obviously the Women's Prize, and it's the only one that I read the full shortlist for, and I read part of the long list as well, although I did not manage the whole long list. In number 7, we had to reach 1,000 subs on my channel, and I did not achieve that, as you can see, but that was a bit out of my control, you know. And I think toward the end of the year I got really busy and I haven't been kind of participating in the community as much, but I still doubled my sub count in 2022, and I'm really pleased with how I'm doing and everything. And you know, I'm getting back into a rhythm now with my little laptop and everything, so I'm really pleased. And I really couldn't have done it without all of you who are subscribed, who follow me and everything, and especially couldn't have done it without all the shout outs that I got from all kinds of booktubers, you know, all kinds of sizes of channels. And that's a huge thank you from me, and I will definitely be sharing the love when I reach 1,000 subs. In number 8, I had the goal of doing more buddy reads. And this is one that's fun because you kind of participate in the community, and there's different kinds of doing buddy reads. So I've been doing like voice notes, I've been doing on Storygraph, I've been doing video chats, you know, all kinds. So I did 4 buddy reads in 2022. 2 with Nikki from Red Dot Reads. We read The Bastard of Istanbul from Elif Shafak, as well as The Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. I also read Piranesi by Susanna Clark with Nyx from Nyx Reads. That was really fun. And also I did a very long buddy read with Rosie Kargshot. We read The Count of Monte Cristo together. Started sort of in August. I finished in December. She finished way before me. That was a bit of like a disjointed one, but it was still great to be able to share thoughts with someone along the way. Thank you, ladies, so much for participating with me and, you know, for sharing your time. It was really cool. The penultimate goal, goal number 9, was to read the winners, the female winners of the Nobel Prize for Literature. And I did not do well at all in that goal. And it's probably one of my weakest goals, actually. So I read 1 in 2022. 1. I'm on my 3rd one this year, and with the 3rd of February. So yeah, did not do that well. I guess I put that goal, and then I think I didn't really go for it that much. The challenge is still up on TheStorygraph. I will link it below, so if you want to join me, please do. You know, slowly making our way. I will be extending it because it's meant to be ending in March on the International Women's Day, but I think I'll be extending it for another year or 2. We'll see. And finally, my last goal, I mean, it wasn't really a goal, but it's to read some specific authors. It's not really a measurable goal, but how did I do? So the authors I mentioned were Ali Smith, and I did read 2 of her books, part of the seasonal quartet. I never finished the last one. I read the first one in 2021, 2 of them. And then Summer. I don't know what happened. I forgot about it. So I will try to remedy that this year and finish just the quartet. I also wanted to read more Bernadette Evaristo and didn't manage any of her fiction, but I did read Manifesto, her nonfiction that came out last year, which I really enjoyed. And I want to read more Bronte and more Virginia Woolf. I definitely did that. I didn't manage to read all the novels by the Bronte sisters or Virginia Woolf in 22. Like, I had original plan, which was absurd, but I did read from them, so I'm quite pleased with that. The only one that I didn't read more from was Elena Ferrante, so I had a plan on reading the second one in the Pilton series, but I didn't. I did come home from Canada with a copy in French, because when I read the copy, the first book in English, I just felt like the translation, because Italian is probably closer to French, that it's probably good that I go for a French translation. So I'm going to try that. So I have it in my library now. So we'll see if I get to it this year or not. So that was it. I think it's been like a mixed year, but I think I went for it. I think I did loads of stuff. I've been trying out things, you know, trying to find my footing in Booktube, and also just how do I follow prizes, how I do this. And I'm trying to learn from the experience, basically, which you will in my next video. You will see how I'm learning with my goals for the year that is coming, that's underway now, basically. I meant to film this a long time ago. But yes, so you'll see my goals for 2023 very soon. So let me know what you think of my stats. Do you think it makes sense? What are your goals that like you've looked at and you're like, I didn't do that well, I'm quite proud of it, or oh god, I thought I'd do better on that one. It's great to share, you know, our wins and losses, I guess. But anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and see you back. Bye!